there. You are listening to the Light FM's Girl Talk podcast. My name is Carol.
This is Alicia.
My name's Tricia.
Who are you?
I'm Tricia. Did you not hear me? Sorry. Is this on?
It is, in fact, on, but that's what we're talking about today. Identity. Who are you? And I know we've got lots of songs, we've got lots of scriptures, lots of things that we can point to, but I heard this quote from John Piper. He said, our identity is for the sake of making known his identity. And I was like, man, that changes
Say
it.
that again. I always ask you to repeat
the
quotes.
They're good.
Say it again. I know. I need to hear it again.
Our identity is for the sake of making known his identity.
I'm writing it down.
So I liken this to my child watching me. And I have to, just go ahead and tell you that my child will be in counseling at some point. She's already been to a little bit, but there will be more. It's because I'm her mama. But I've never really thought about it in these terms until I've struggled with my weight for years. I just have. That's been a struggle for me. And one day I was talking to her about something, and she was trying on clothes or something. She was like, I'm so fat. And I went, where have you heard that? And she didn't answer me. She just looked at me like she was in trouble or something. And I realized that she'd heard it from me.
Yeah.
And so I thought of that in the context of this quote, that my identity is for the sake of making his identity known. So when you think you're a reflection of that, makes a big difference. So when people look at you, do they see Christ? We talk about that all the time, but that was a really big imprint on my brain of like what you say matters, what you do, how you react to things. It matters, and people are watching. The whole world right now is watching believers to see how we act and react. And, it's such a volatile time in our culture where everybody's offended by everything. Just go be offended. Don't care who you're offended at. Just be offended at somebody, please. And if you're not offended, get on Facebook, and you will be. But it was a big lesson to me that people are watching. And when I read that quote, I was like, what does my identity say about Christ? Like when people look, if people were like, okay, she's a Christian, what does her life say about Christ? I wanted to hide.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to hide. Well, she doesn't trust him very much. She doesn't, she's not got a very big God, those kinds of things. But when I think of it in the context of getting my identity right, not only for my health and spiritual well-being, but also to be a light in our world, because that's what we're called to as well,
Well, and I think one of the things we have to be careful of, though, I think that it's like we need to be like Christ, but we cannot. No one can be Christ. He's the only perfect person. And so we have to remember we're flawed and we're human and we're going to make mistakes. We're going to sin. But how can we best be like him?
I'm probably going to get thrown off the podcast for this, but I'm going to bring up Kanye West. Because he's been in the news a ton lately, okay? So I was watching this news story, and I don't know if you've watched anything. It doesn't matter how you feel about him. But I will say, when I would watch the news stories and then I would see Christians respond to his, I don't believe that's for real. You know what? I thought this. I had this thought. I thought there were people that thought that about me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
God can never make anything out of that. God can never redeem that. Look at the mistakes she's made, and it brought me back down to earth. And I actually started praying for the guy because I was like, you know what? He's on a public stage, a very large stage, and it's not up to me. And let me just tell you this: it's not up to you too. We don't get to decide whether or not he's a real believer. That's between him and God.
Right.
But on the same side of that coin, nobody gets to decide if you're for real either.
Right.
And I'll it's
a personal relationship.
I'll put myself out there and say for a good portion of my life, I played church. I did. I knew what to say. I knew how to impress people. I knew how to act. I knew all the things to do, but I did not have a relationship with Christ at all. And it wasn't until my life fell apart and I went, okay, either these things are absolutely true or this is the biggest scam I've ever fell for in my entire life.
Yeah.
And Lord, you're going to have to show me because I'm not sure I know.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people that are in the shoes that you just explained. You know, at church every week at the end, they give this invitation to get to know Jesus. Mm-hmm. And every week I'm amazed. There are people that are sitting there week after week after week. And then suddenly, and our eyes are all closed, so I don't know who you are.
You're looking around, Alicia, aren't you?
But he always makes a point to say, close your eyes, no one's watching.
I always look.
But
I do. I can't help it. You tell me not. Y'all know from working with me, if you tell me not to do something, I'm going to do it.
But there's people that raise their hand.
Yeah.
And so I think that it is. They finally something clicks. So then they're like, okay, I need that relationship. And so I think there is a lot of pretending or you think you know. And then there's something that finally clicks that it's like, there it is.
Mm-hmm. And it's often exactly what you said, like when the bottom falls out.
Yeah.
When the worst thing happens, then you really are stuck with this, like, wow, do I believe this or do I not believe this? I went for years without knowing the difference. I went for years without knowing that I wasn't living for Christ. Right. I mean, I thought I was, but I wasn't really, you know? Mm-hmm. I was my own God in a sense, and I would go to church, but I made my own decisions, and I felt good about that, but I didn't know what was different until I went through some really hard times and had to do exactly what you said.
Yeah.
And figure out, is this the biggest scam or is this the truth? And I have found it to be the truth.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and I think sometimes, like you say that about decisions, sometimes I forget to pray about a big decision. I'm like, I turn around and I'm like, I need to be praying. And so like a big decision or like you need something, easy. Right. Of course, right. I'm going to pray about that because I need something. But like if you're trying to make a decision, you need to take the time and pray about it before you're making that decision and look for that wisdom and get guidance and seek from other believers. But sometimes I forget.
I know.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I kick myself later.
Well, here's the reality is growing up in the area that we have, there's a ton of people who do that. They go to church every week because in your community, that is the thing to do, or it has been. Up until, probably the last 5 years or so.
That's true.
If you were a fine, upstanding citizen in your community, you probably went to church. Mm-hmm. That's just how I grew up. That's what we did.
It's cultural.
It's very cultural. I'm thankful for that now because if I miss church, I really miss it. I'm like, I can't wait to go back to church because I love church. And it has become such an anchor for me. But I just want to say this. If you're pretending, you don't have to. You know what? There are people who will love you and walk you through the process, and you are missing the best part. Yeah. You are missing the best part, and that's what I wish I could go back and tell my younger self. Like, because I used to try to do it, like check off the little boxes. You read your Bible today? Did you talk to anybody about Jesus? I used to try to do all that, and all those are good things. But you're supposed to do that out of the overflow of the relationship that you have with God. And if you don't have that, you are missing the best part. Yes. If I invited you over for a full course meal and you didn't eat any of it, well, that'd be weird. But that's what you're doing. You're coming over, but you're not eating the meal. And that is what I don't want you to miss. And I've had this relationship with a lot of different people where they'll say, well, I was hurt by church. And I understand that because I was hurt by church too. It's very real and it's painful and it's hard. But here, you're missing the best part because we're people and we're human and we're sinful. And we're all going to let you down. Even the three girls sitting around these microphones going to let you down. We're not going to mean to, but we're human.
Yeah.
That's because we weren't created to be your God. We were created to be your friends. And that may be one thing that you may need to peel back the layers and see if maybe you were looking at the people in your church to be your God instead of your friends and your family and your spiritual family, because that can get you off kilter and you can miss the best part. And I don't want you to miss the best part.
No.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get off.
I'm so glad you did, Carol. And I would say, yes, I would say the same thing. I have learned that the relationship that I have now is so much better than the sort of, pop in and out that I had before. And don't miss it. Don't miss it. Don't let pride get in the way. Don't let fear get in the way. Yeah. Make sure
I think something else that I was thinking of too with this, the idea of identity and something you just said, Carol, about sometimes we look up to other like Christian leaders, or in
Yes.
the you mentioned Kanye West. I think a lot of people are looking at him, and a lot of people are looking up to him, which I think is amazing and can have amazing results, and God can really be using him. But we can't put him on a pedestal. We can't put these other people on a pedestal and pretend that they are God. God's using them and working through them, but they are not God. They're human. They're going to fail. And then when they do fail, then we're going to call them out and we're going to say, well, you're terrible. And now I don't believe in God because I was trusting in you when we're trusting in the wrong person.
That's it right there. Yep. Yeah. And anything can be a God. It doesn't even have to be a person.
Right.
I mean, I will say for a time that brokenness was my God. That became the thing that because I was broken and I was telling my brokenness story, but there was no hero. Well, actually, there was a hero, and it was me, and I'm a terrible hero, by the way. I don't even have a cape or a mask, but Jesus is the hero of the story.
So your identity was your brokenness.
Oh, yeah.
And,
I understand that.
Yeah, it was. It was for a long time because and here was the thing. The reason that my brokenness was my idol, my God, was because I kept looking for somebody to say something to make me feel better. You know?
Yeah.
I kept waiting for somebody to land on the scene and go, Carol, here it is. Here's the thing you've been looking for. Now, it was in the Bible, but that wasn't where I was looking, you know? But I wanted somebody. I walked around like with an empty cup saying, you know, will you give me something to make me feel? And all that was empty. I mean, people said some wonderful things and people said some horrible things. And all that would go into the cup. And at the end of the day, I was like, I'm still thirsty. I don't know why I'm still thirsty, because brokenness was my God. And until I found the real well that could fill me up,
Yes.
I was still thirsty. And so, you know, I'd wasted a lot of time. And I have a regret about that. But I wouldn't be the believer I am today if I hadn't gone through that. If I
With
hadn't,
the passion that you have.
I have passion?
You have passion.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, identity's huge. When you think about it from the aspect of reflecting it for other people, I think that changed a little bit of my mindset and what goes on in my head because I saw that, you know, from my daughter. But I think it's important, too, because we miss the best part. We miss the best part.
Your analogy is going to stick with me about the cup walking around. Fill me. I do that too, and it can be such a vulnerable place. Yeah. If you're letting other people, other experiences tell you who you are, what your identity is. Oh, it can be great if somebody says something nice. Yes, I'm great. Or then the next minute somebody says something not so great. I'm terrible.
You know, and it's funny that we're in the radio business where you get ratings every so often.
Yeah.
They love you, they hate you. They love you, they hate you. They
or
love you,
text
they hate you.
every
exactly.
day.
People write in.
Yeah.
And
So
have their
sometimes it's
opinion.
good, sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
Why'd you look at me when you said sometimes it's not?
No, she did.
She didn't.
Not
She was looking at me.
you.
But we do. Even
Yeah.
at a Christian radio station, you know, there are people who don't like us, and that's always going to be the case.
Yeah.
It's not personal either. A lot of times when
We're
that
not pizza.
stuff is.
Everybody
Some
likes
people don't
pizza.
like. My daughter doesn't like pizza.
All right, tacos.
So tacos. There you go. Yeah, but if you've made something other than God your God, that might be a source of pain. And here's the thing: I didn't realize that I was my own worst enemy because I kept going to those empty wells and trying to draw water. You know, if you go to a well and it's empty, it only takes you one visit. You ain't gonna go back there because there's no water.
Yeah.
You know, that would make sense. Although in life, I kept going back to those same people, those same places, those same empty wells to try to get filled back up.
Because it gives you a drop.
Yeah.
And that
Sure.
confuses you. It gives you just a little
Little
drop
drop.
of satisfaction or joy or whatever.
Yeah.
And so then you keep going back. Maybe there'll be more this time, but there never is.
And Facebook is the same way.
Yeah.
It's a well.
It's a well.
We go to make ourselves feel better or worse.
Yeah.
And we walk away with one of the two things. You know, we either feel better because our cheesecake turned out better than theirs, or
That never happens.
I've never made a cheesecake, so I wouldn't know. But I can buy a mean one.
Yes.
I can buy a mean one. But then we go and look at everybody else's kids, and we think, okay, they're not all put together and have a nice Christmas photo like they do.
Yeah.
And so we either feel better or worse. And that is another functional God that serves our ego and leaves us thirsty. Yeah. So there you go. Identity. It's tough. It is important. It's important work, especially if you're raising kiddos. I think it's so important to get these things right and to build these foundations into our children And to, even if you don't have kids, you've got some kids who you influence who are watching you. You're an aunt or you're an uncle or you're, I said uncle because we've got guys who listen to the podcast, even though it's called the Girl Talk Podcast. We love you too.
Yes, we do.
And it's okay that you're listening with the earbuds right now so nobody knows. But whoever you find in your sphere of influence, you're influencing somebody, and to build these foundations into their lives. I wish somebody had done it for me, because I think I would be a lot farther along in my life if I'd have gotten that right earlier on. But instead, I built it on things that don't matter and things that didn't last. And it did take a breaking of my life to get me back to the one thing that really mattered. And we don't want you to miss Jesus. We do not want you to miss the best part. And so if you feel like you have been playing church and maybe you're afraid to say so, we are a safe place. You're welcome to send us an email, girltalk@thelightfm.org. We'll help you work through that. We'll help find you a church. We'll help whatever way that we can help, because we do not want you to miss the best part. It would be so sad for us to do this podcast, to work in a radio ministry, and for you to enjoy the music and enjoy the teaching and enjoy all these wonderful things, but miss Jesus. That would break our hearts, and we don't want to see that happen. That's why you're listening to this podcast right now. So get in touch with us. Get in touch on the Facebook page, email us, call us. We would love to talk with you about it. And we will see you next time we gather around these microphones for the Girl Talk Podcast.